He was 76 years old. She was 69. They had children. They had grandchildren. They went to church. They grew vegetables. And between 1986 and 1989, they shot at least 5 men in the back of the head, buried them in shallow graves on their Missouri farm, and kept a handwritten list of their names with an X marked next to each one who was dead. This is the story of Ray and Faye Copeland. Raymond Copeland was born in Oklahoma on December 30th, 1914. He grew up poor, dropping out of school in the 4th grade. From an early age, Ray stole livestock, money, anything he could get his hands on. He was arrested repeatedly throughout his 20s and 30s for stealing cattle, forging checks, and grand larceny. Each time he served his sentence, he came out and did it again. In 1940, Ray met a young woman named Faye Wilson. They married quickly and had 5 children. Every few years, when Ray's criminal reputation caught up with him in one town, he would pack the family up and move to the next one. Faye, raised as a strict Christian fundamentalist, believed divorce was a sin. When Ray beat her, she never left. By the mid-1960s, the family had settled on a 40-acre farm in Mooresville, Missouri. Ray was still running cattle fraud, forging checks at livestock auctions to buy cattle, selling them quickly before the checks cleared, pocketing the profit. But he had been caught so many times his name was banned at every auction in the region. So he adapted. He started hiring drifters. The plan was simple. Ray would find homeless men with no fixed address and no family looking for them and offer them work. He would set them up with a basic checking account in their own names, take them to auction where they would buy cattle using checks drawn on those accounts, then sell the cattle before the checks bounced. When investigators eventually traced the bad checks, they found the drifters, men with no money, and often no idea they had committed fraud. Ray was never directly implicated. For years it worked. Drifters came, did their part, and left. But at some point in the mid-1980s, something changed. Ray stopped letting them leave. The murder weapon was a .22 caliber Marlin bolt-action rifle. The method was the same every time. Each man was shot in the back of the head at close range. Ray would take them to a remote part of the property and kill them from behind. Then he buried them. Some in shallow graves around the farm, one under bales of hay in a barn. The 5 confirmed victims were Dennis Murphy, Wayne Warner, Jimmy Dale Harvey, age 27, John Freeman, age 27, and Paul Cowart, age just 20. All shot in the back of the head, all buried on or near the Copeland farm. Inside the farmhouse, investigators would later find a small handwritten notebook in Faye's handwriting. It listed every drifter who had ever worked on the farm. 12 of those names had a crude X beside them. Only 5 bodies were ever found. And while her husband was shooting men in the back of the head and burying them in the yard, Faye was doing something with their clothes. The men arrived with little more than what they were wearing. After they were killed, their clothing stayed behind. Faye cut those shirts and jackets and work pants into squares and sewed them into a quilt. When police found it, it was neatly folded. It was, by all accounts, well made. The Copelands might have continued for years if not for a drifter named Jack McCormick. McCormick had worked for Ray but noticed that other men who had come to the farm had simply vanished without a word. One night, Ray asked him to come to a neighbor's barn with a rifle, saying there was a raccoon getting in. McCormick kept his eyes on Ray the entire time, never let him get behind him, and left the farm shortly after. In August 1989, McCormick called the Missouri Crime Stoppers hotline and told investigators he believed he had seen human bones on the Copeland property, and that he was afraid of Ray Copeland. In October 1989, officers with cadaver dogs arrived at the farm. In a barn on a neighboring property, they found the first body, then another, then 3 more in shallow graves. All 5 shot in the back of the head with the same .22 Marlin rifle found inside the farmhouse. In the guest bedroom closet, clothing belonging to the victims, the handwritten list with 12 X marks, and the quilt. They also found, inside a Polaroid camera case, a handwritten note from Faye to Ray reporting on the progress of the police search of their property. She had been monitoring the investigation. She had been reporting back to him. Faye was tried first in November 1990. Her defense argued she was a battered wife conditioned into compliance after decades of abuse. Prosecutors pointed to the list, the note about the police search, and the quilt. The jury convicted her on all 5 counts of first-degree murder. Ray was convicted the following March. At 76 and 69 years old, Ray and Faye Copeland became the oldest couple ever sentenced to death in United States history. Neither was ever executed. Ray died in prison of natural causes in 1993. Faye suffered a stroke in 2002 and was paroled to a nursing home, where she died on December 23, 2003. The 7 men whose names were marked with an X, but whose bodies were never found, have never been identified. Somewhere in Livingston County, Missouri, there may be graves that were never discovered. Ray and Faye Copeland raised 5 children on that farm. They had grandchildren who visited. They grew vegetables. They went to church, and on the bed in the guest room, neatly folded, was a quilt made from the clothes of men buried in the yard. If you want more deep dives into killers hiding in plain sight for decades, follow Scream Index. Explore the darkest corners of human nature, if you dare.